Hi there. Good evening, everybody. Welcome, welcome. This is another installation of A Response and a Call, brought to you, of course, by the Justice Dance Performance Project. I'm Melissa Craig. I'm a very proud and uh, honored ensemble member to be a part of all the magical work that happens in our organization and to be someone who leads and helps to make sure that the magic of a response and a call happens. This is our seventh one. I'm really proud of us. We're actually 2 days out from our anniversary of this event when it started in 2020. First one was on June 8th, 2020. And we started this series in response to the killing of George Floyd, quite frankly. An opportunity to respond and give voice to the grief, the fear, the worry, but also give light through artwork to the hope that can be brought and the opportunity for us to collaborate and really fight for change through our art forms. That chance was given to all of us at JDPP that are artists of color specifically, and it was really nice and kind of groundbreaking actually to be able to have a platform to speak not only with our voices and have dialogues about these important topics, but also to create artwork and to use our art forms to respond. So we know why we're here. We've seen the slides. You all registered and you're here on purpose. This is the next installation of Response and a Call. It's an amazing virtual series. We're actually real life people doing this real time for you, but this is our way of reaching you. The pandemic has turned our lives upside down. And starting in 2020, after the killing of George Floyd, we needed this space and this method of reaching people even more so. The importance of events like this helps everybody to open their minds up and kind of fight injustice, intolerance, all the ills of the world that we're trying to kind of get through together, and using art as the catalyst and the vehicle. Throughout the series, it's our seventh one. You've been able to see singing, dance, live music, amazing conversations, poetry. And then today, like I said, is our 2-year anniversary of this event, and a special day and a special, amazing way to keep the response and the call energy new and fresh. We have a spotlight and an amazing artist, a fellow Hartford and Connecticut and African natured and descended melanin brother over here next to me, Frederick Douglas Knowles. I mean, I don't know what you're going to read the bio in a second, friends. We've known each other for quite some time, right? The cycle has been a minute. It's been strong because the art is strong, because the passion's strong, and you are for such a treat today to be able to hear his poetry and we're going to pick your brain a little bit. We're going to talk to each other a little bit as well. We're both educators, and we both have had many mountains to climb as our last response in the call. So we're going to start you off with a video, and you're going to just get your introduction to FTK, as I will refer to you as, and I always have since I met you, respectfully. And then we're going to get into a little bit more. So thank you so much for tuning into this response and a call. We're so proud of this series and so happy to be able to continue to collaborate, build new bridges, expose you and ourselves to more diverse art forms and just more voices and more opinions and more stories, because all of them are necessary to really understand this complex world that we're trying to get through together. So enjoy that first clip.
If I could just dance with my dad for a day, so he could take away these questions that run through my mind, and if I could just Dance with my dad for a day so he can help me see things clear that are normally blind. And if I could just dance with my dad for a day so we could take the tears that never seem to stop. And if I could just dance with my dad for a day to help me fill this hole that consumes my heart. And if I could just dance with my dad for a day to take the pressure off my shoulders. And if I could just dance with my dad for one day so he could watch me transcend from a boy into a man and grow older. And if I could just dance with my dad for a day so he could help me heal this world with love and peace. And if I could just dance with my dad for a day so he could teach me how to hold my hands high in front of the police. And if I could just dance with my dad for a day so he could look into my ebony eyes and see his very own. And if I could just dance with my dad for one day, so at least for one day I wouldn't feel all alone and miss you.
Oh, I told you, starting off strong. That was an amazing performance video provided through the Fatherhood Monologues. I heard about that project, by the way.
Yes. Oh,
It's amazing,
powerful
amazing.
project.
I mean, but hopefully at the talk back, we'll get to like really dig into all the material. That piece that you just saw was called If I Could Just. And I mean, we have the man in the studio today, friends. So we're gonna hear some of the material live. Right now, we would love to hear a little bit from the book, Black Rose City.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, you introduce your piece, you know, people want to hear your voice a little bit.
Yes, peace. Black Rose City is a collection of poetry about growing up in my native town of Norwich, Connecticut, known as the official Rose of New England. So it speaks about our communities, upbringing, so on and so forth. So the piece I'm about to read actually is titled Final Frontier, and really just talks about growing up. Kindergarten class is my final frontier. Its sun-splattered walls housed a colorblind utopia of children who resembled each complexion under the Milky Way. Almond white, cinnamon brown, and golden yellow spectrums of light formed a unirace of a rainbow on the other side of Miss Fitzgerald's classroom door. Her warm smile and frosty white hair welcomed her students at the entrance. We began class with basic math, reciting numbers, counting all the way up to 25, our goal for the week. Storytime solved the mysteries of how whales spit water out the hole on top of their head, and how kangaroos bounced up and down, never dropping their babies. During playtime, I tied on the little white apron, nuzzled the fitted cap, and sold goods from the corner store, exchanging paper coins for empty cereal boxes, thanking my customers for their service. Tuesday afternoons was sing-along. Amy's dad, Mr. Jeffers, scooted underneath the doorway, guitar case slung over his back. We gathered in a semicircle, sat Indian style, and sang to his melodic strum. Bluebird, bluebird, in and out my window. Bluebird, bluebird, in and out my window. Bluebird, bluebird, in and out my window. The funny knot in his throat slid up and down to the chorus of "Oh, Johnny, I'm tired." I never grew tired of the bluebirds. But the other side of Miss Fitzgerald's classroom door didn't believe in rainbows. It didn't believe cinnamon was brown or yellow was golden, or that blackbirds should fly amongst doves.
So yeah, I'm trying not to cry, but I'm also in my head like thinking of my own moments of childhood innocence, and we're gonna get into the meat of all this stuff soon, friends. I want to continue on just listening, building our vocabulary, hearing your stories, hearing your words. You tell them so vividly and so powerfully, and I think if anybody who's ever seen FTK live knows, like, the music, the hip hop, the heartbeat is where you shine all the time.
It's
but
the pulse. It's the
right,
pulse.
that's definitely the pulse.
It's the
So
pulse, yeah.
we're gonna get to hear 3 pieces
Yes,
of yours. We're gonna get through all the material, and then I'm taking my notes. We're gonna break down some stuff, and we're gonna get back to the root core of why we're here today. Besides enjoying the word and just really being blessed by your brilliance. The root core is really to talk about education, the right to know, writing our future, using this art form as a way to interrogate, celebrate, and put it all together. How do we teach and learn each other, our kids, other people's kids?
Put it all together in a hodgepodge, you know?
Right.
We make it. This is for the ancestors. Sally is sold for cowrie shells by the African seashore. Ever since the evidence of womanhood stripped from her orifice, she was branded a nigger whore. Her little mulberry breasts, barely ripened, but ripe enough for the salivating lips, the bastards who plastered their sperm in the Sally's garden germinate blood-sucking worms. Half beautiful, half bastard, childlike Joe from Sankofa, the remnant leftovers of the brutalization to the seas of our nation. And so now Sally sits in the bottom of a slave ship with the devil's child between her hips, pondering what in the world is she ever to do with it. Is she to nurture it, smother it, or drop it overboard into the sea? See, the beautiful thing about Sally, she has the spirit of an African violet, who opens her petals to let anybody in, even those who committed the deeds of sins. So I asked Sally if I could just tell her story, to walk through trials and tribulations, hollering glory. But where does it end and where does it begin? Young Sally's locked garden, pride opened hearted by the age of 10. Sally speaks this pad and pen, telling me to forgive but never forget. So I asked Sally, how can I forgive the original wrongdoers who feel no remorse? The same ones who jockeyed the pale white horse. But when my ancestors speak, I tried to listen. I told Sally I'd tell her story. She granted me permission to tell her story, to walk through trials and tribulations, hollering glory. Glory to the sun, moon, and stars, the elements of the universe given from God. You see, God began to implement her plan, and Sally had told me in secret that God is not merely a man. I mean, how can a man understand the pain endured by the beauty of the world, AKA Sally, Ida Sojourn, those 4 little black girls? She told this warrior to stand strong because the fields are almost sowed. And soon, in our mother's gardens, beautiful black flowers grow. So now as I sit by the windowsill, I can hear the children sing. Sally is sold for seashells by the seashore. No more. No more. In the complex state of mind, I find need of independence. All through essence where ignorance is completely irrelevant. See, I am a predestined messenger, heaven sent, an intelligent warrior drawn to battle to annihilate ignorance. In a comical sense, sometimes I take my life as if I'd already been spent, or maybe it's just been lent. You see, a sense of reality is what I make of it. And sometimes I accept the realization, other times I blame it on the worldly sins of society. What I fail to see is that society is me. So in fact, my world becomes anything I want and truly desire it to be. My world is my thoughts, dreams, visions, and ideas, reflecting the spiritual realm of 360 degrees. Inhaling the eternal breeze as it flows to fruitful trees and land of paradise free of death and disease. There's no G's, Sellies, or warrior king wannabes, just love and ease that's given and received from every life force that desires to breathe. Hummingbirds with butterflies, flower crystals with bumblebees, kangaroos and monkeys, polar bears and penguins, and Pooh Bear and the Hopi tribe, and descending ebony eyes that resemble mine. My world is a haven for the youth who will console the ancestors of the unknown and rationalize the healing of their hearts because they're being fooled from the very start, and they wonder why America is falling apart. That creates this global domino effect that will stretch in reverse from the cracking of the seven seals the first time Eve gave birth. My world hails the actions of intelligence and environments of action of ignorance, such as martyrs of mental militants, the last poets, the prophets of rage, Marcus Garvey, Medgar Evers, Evers, Sister Soldier, Mumia, Black Thought, and Black Star, and Abdullah Muhammad received first repentance and then deliverance. My world is a utopia of red, black, and green. Contrast illustrious hues of silver, purple, and gold, melanin rainbows of the soul. The understanding of self-control and the removal of enslaving statements such as probation and parole and 25 to life and sleep with my brother's wife and kill my man with a knife because I hate life and I just might want to take flight into the world of hallucinogens with crack pipes and lust and lure of the devil's plight when I know it ain't right. When I know it ain't right. So now you can see my world is the original world, domicile with wisdom of wealth and knowledge of self that circulates through suspensions with no conception of time. Finding myself would take my entire lifetime, but my body will be divine. And the iniquities that have burdened me may no longer have power over my entity. These enticing worldly sins have lost their beauty, and I can see that they are ugly. And out of that 144,000, I want to be 143. My mind, body, and soul have come to agree at my world, this world that I love and hate at the same time. Well, my world will come to pass, and it shall pass in due time. You see, it's catastrophic the way I come through with these vital topics. I block this like Europeans seize the tropics through a nonchalant flow that will better show the real of the wisdom and faith that must continue to grow. Because you're never going to know which way is up, Black man, until you are stuck. All the strain and stress cause your mind to bust, and so you erupt with self-destruction. You see, Michael Jackson gave us half the equation. You are not alone. This is the theme of our nation. Immediate sensation is how we live, and there is no love for our kids, no future, no hopes, just long-term bids. It makes me sick and nauseous how ignorance thrives in our people with its dramatic parasitical tactics. Why do we got to have it? Let's eradicate and elevate our mind state, because refusal will bring us closer to our wakes. I feel your position, Black men. You're hard-headed and not want to listen, but you see, they bait the hook and wait like deep-sea fishing. The fishnet theory they began to implement, and they spend billions to keep us locked behind this fence. This adapted, deemed relevant nonsense no longer hides itself in suspense. But the only thing worse than a blind man who cannot see is a blind man who does not desire to see. We wake up every morning wondering why we are here. Every morning, wake up, listen out for our message with a deaf ear. We wake up every morning not knowing it's going to be our last, and so we wait because time moves too fast to be sleeping. But you see, we are asleep. Physically, mentally, spiritually, we accept defeat. We accept defeat because we do not question the wills of the way, and so we sleep, wondering if we will wake to see another day. I guess for a Black man or any human, reality can be a fictional, depressing nightmare that we cannot awake from. And so inside our nightmares, we shall sleep until kingdom shall come.
This is the part of our program now
Yeah.
where we talk
Yeah, right.
and the audience engages as well,
Yeah.
right? I don't think we want to stop to do slides from you, Robin. I can just tell everybody you can write your questions in the chat if you got any. I'm going to start with a few, and if my questions inspire your questions or comments, please feel free to put as much as you want into the chat. We'll address all those things. All right. But let's just start at the beginning. To me, like, there's so many references to youth, like even the poem, the very first one we did, the video, that was, if I could just, these childhood dreams, wishes, if we went to Final Frontier. So how do you feel like your upbringing or your childhood kind of like affected your concept of knowledge and words and the power and in words and learning?
Yeah, so the first piece for a day is dedicated to my dad, Harvey Eugene Knowles, Sr., who passed or died when I was 42. When I was 42, he died when I was 42. No, he died when he was 42, and I was his 6-month-old ninth child. So I never got to spend any time with my dad. Him and my mom were, married, 9 children, standard classic 50s family. Dad worked, mom took care of the kids, and it was my father who had a heart attack on the job, actually. And so, that poem really resonates. That's so much of my life experience day by day. And then actually being able to realize and recognize that he's gone and never coming back as a child. And I remember seeing for the first time on paper by his name, the word deceased. And that's how I learned what deceased meant. And I think I'm maybe 8 years old or something like that, right? So that's the family upbringing, we're very united. There's 11 of us. And, the love for words, it really started with my mom. Stay in school, stay in school. Don't be like your brothers and sisters. Stay in school, stay in school, stay in school. I'm 9 out of 11, right? So, and I did, and hip hop came along and the play with language. That's a huge element. That's like another third or quarter, I should say. And the last quarter would be the acknowledgement of the passion and how it makes me feel, how it makes people feel, and fulfilling purpose, right? So those 4 quarters make up poems like For a Day. And Final Frontier comes from being the only Black child in a classroom. I grew up in all white neighborhood and so forth. And we had the biggest block in the entire neighborhood, and so remembering that kindergarten was awesome. Kindergarten was good, you went for half a day, you played, then was story time, snack time, nap, and time to go home, and Miss Fitzgerald was my kindergarten teacher at Thomas W. Mahan Elementary School in Black Rose City, CT. And she was just the best. And that poem really plays on our approach to life, because on the other side of Miss Fitzgerald's classroom door is all this. All this, the reason why we're here, one of the reasons why it inspired this, the main catalyst of inspiring this series, George Floyd and so forth, right? And the countless other brothers and sisters, and on top of that, humans, right, who have gone through it, So Final Frontier was, most of us, if you give us an opportunity to go in a time machine, we can only go back to kindergarten. A lot of us are done.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of us are taking
Quickly.
that mothership to
Quickly.
kindergarten.
And when things were less complicated,
Absolutely.
So, along the way, your experiences have informed. Do you feel like your teaching, your education really prepared you for the world? And I think that's multi-layered.
Yeah,
of course, you got your family and your school.
Yeah, right. So we're talking public education.
Yeah,
public knowledge. I went through public schools and had a blast. but it's a different era, you know. I'm 80s. I was in junior high in 85, 86, you know, when hip hop was hitting, R&B and rock was hitting. And, you know, so, and we had a blast. I mean, you know, I was an average student, you know what I mean? High school was the same. So, I mean, it's always been there, even though we have to muddle through it because it gives a lot of muck.
Right.
And we got to muddle through all this muck to find some sort of inkling of something to latch onto that's going to actually quench the thirst of our knowledge, right? And my educational upbringing did that. And then academics, you know, going to college and so forth for a very long time. I spent 4 years in community college. I'll just say that. That's just the brevity. Full time, by the way.
Look, whatever gets you through. Look at you now, right? Look at you now.
Full-time community college for 4 years. So, but you know, just the knowledge. I mean, the thirst. You know, just trying to figure things out, and it was through school and the artistry that, you know, poetry, the passion amalgamated to poetry. You know, and I'm very thankful for that. So in my education was, I had a really good educational experience, you know. I think the most traumatic thing in my education is when 5th grade, when Miss Galuli actually put my desk behind the piano, because I was always talking all the time, right? So I was tucked away behind the piano. I should be like Bach or somebody by now, but I never even thought about that, you know. But
you didn't touch the piano?
I never touched the piano. No, I never did. You know.
At least you can laugh a little bit about it now.
Absolutely.
I think.
But she was fine too. Miss Cooley wasn't, you know, I wasn't no saint, so she was all right.
Point is like, you know, there are ways that we learn about ourselves. Like not just your personality, but who you are in the world, what your skin reflects, the assumptions that people are going to make. And I'm curious because you make so many powerful references to like African heritage, to our roots, to the strength of the Black community, the leadership, the flame. You say there's lists of names: Sojourner, Mia, Sister Soldier, but Blast Poets, like all these names, and I feel like I didn't have that part. Like that was missing from my education. You know, like so.
Mine too, though.
Right.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Where do those influences enter your life, and are there even points before that where your Blackness kind of informed you about yourself in the world, positive or negative?
Yeah, well, of course, you know, in all white schools and so forth, enough being said right there, you know. So. But you know, later on, I'll tell you, I didn't start reading Morrison, you know, until grad school. Like I didn't read any of our esteemed, you know, African rooted authors, you know what I mean? I didn't even know. So I was like really, really embarrassed. So I did double time in grad school studying lit and really just being like, okay, this is affirmation of what's already I feel inside me and so forth. This is what's been missing K through 12 or all the way up to my life at this point is this, right? What's my foundation? Where are my roots? You cannot convince me and tell me that the narrative you have written about me and my ancestors, that those are our roots. Like, how would you know about our roots, right? How would any colonizer know about the true roots of any culture that they're trying to colonize and so forth, right? And so that's where the fervor came, and that was the moment where it was just like, yeah, okay. And then listening to, or trying my best to listen to the ancestors and so forth, like, okay, all right. And then each step, they're like, all right, here you go. I'm like, okay, well then let's go. Sometimes a little hard-headed, I bump my head, I don't listen, you know, they gotta go through things in life, you know. But the education, and like I said before, my mom, she was like, it was a mantra, stay in school, stay in school. My friends would clown me like, yeah, Freddie, you still in school? Like, you know, like you 32. Yeah, I'm still in school, I'm still in school. Because once I found what I was in school for, or what was actually the flame of my quest for education and not schooling. You know, there's a difference between schooling versus education. There's an essay about that, you know.
Maybe, can you give us like a little snippet
of the
like what is How do you internalize that?
Oh,
What's the
so
difference
so
between schooling and education?
yeah, so schooling it's pretty much, programming. It's the K through 12 programming system, right? That was, adapted actually from Germany. Really,
I did not know.
Nazi Germany, yeah, because actually kindergarten is German. You know what I mean?
The
The word itself, yeah. Um, and
Sky, what's your word?
so schooling is that program, and that's why we get to 6, 18 or 12th grade. I'm done. Okay, I'm done being programmed, and I'm so turned off that I don't even know what education is. Education is lifetime. We can continue to educate ourselves on whatever we want to, but schooling, we say we're done. So at 17, 18 years old, we're telling our minds we're done learning because you programmed me from all that time and so forth. And it's effective and it works, unfortunately. So that's the difference between schooling versus education. So the education of what you want to be is what it's going to amount to.
True. I feel that so many, like, it brings me back, even like I have all these notes about the poems, and
Yeah, so you jotting down on that.
I'm like trying
I
to
know you
keep
jotting
up
down a little.
because there's so many things, right? I loved in Final Frontier, like the way that you described colors. It was so warm and like flavorful and like delicious sounding and unified, like all the ice cream flavors or something. I don't know. I just wanted to say that it really, like, there was a sweetness and an innocence to it that, like, at some point in all of our lives we lose that, right? We don't have, and it becomes much more black and white and much more rigid of
Right.
how we describe and see ourselves in the crayon box, if at all. And sometimes
Yeah, you got to make it in the box first.
Right,
Sometimes
right.
you
That's
know,
part of the point. And kind of like the color blindness of kids,
Yeah.
that the world should just have a little bit more of. And that's
But
not,
that's what it felt like when I
Yeah.
was in that classroom and so forth. And I really wanted to convey the imagery. Like I really wanted to convey how I was actually feeling at that time in my life. So I had to actually revisit Miss Fitzgerald's classroom, here, inside here, and walk through it and remember, how warm and active, just warm, just a warm space to
I
be
think
in.
that leads me to even dig deeper in the sense of, like, are there other Miss Fitzgeralds? Are there role models? Are there people? Was there a moment in your life that sparked either your poetry or your journey for knowledge, the passion and the drive? Because a lot of you talk also about the brothers and sisters that aren't there, the ones that are doing long bids, the ones that are in the system, the ones that haven't found their way.
Right.
So, like, what distinguishes you? Was there a moment? Is there a moment or a person that, like, kind of helped
Moments,
all that?
yeah, moments, people.
Like-
The most defining moment was when I was arrested in 95 for not selling narcotics, right? Or possession of narcotics, right? Yeah.
Right.
Cocaine, right? I used to sell cocaine. From like 92 to 95, actually, right? Still, when I was in community college, I was selling drugs. I was actually I'd be the only person I'd be the only hustler at the bar, sitting there doing his college homework and hustling at the same time. It's not funny that I was hustling, but just, that's what it was about, And so, that day that they, I was caught, and my 5-year-old daughter, Lanisha, witnessed it, right? And there's a poem in Black Rose City, Daddy's Little Girl, about that particular experience through her eyes. So that was, and so I spent the day in jail story, from raiding the house in the morning time and then going down to the police station and going to the courthouse, standing in front of the judge, which is an experience that you stand in front of somebody who knows nothing about you, but has the power to just sue, and then being transported to Montville facility in the holding cell. And they were trying to put me in main population. And the guy was like, no, don't do that. His mom's coming to get him after church. So I had to wait till after church was over to come get me out. But in that holding cell, I saw so many people looking like me, young brothers, gas Tommy Hilfiger, all the gear and this, that. And I was just like, no, this is not me, because I didn't even need to actually I just did it for convenience, So that was that defining moment. And from there in community college, my grades just went from there. That was zoom.
See,
And that began the quest,
for education.
for
not
education. And in undergrad, second part of your question, senior year, sociology class, because I actually, sociology was my major, my minor was criminal justice, because having that experience and almost getting played, it was like, no, we can't do that. So it was a professor who actually inspired me, because we started reading Nathan McCall Makes Me Want to Holler, So here's this, this young white lady, like hippie-ish and so forth, right? Skirt, long socks and this and that, but just dropping powerful Black literature. And I was like, and that's when the poems started to come out in her classroom, the thoughts, response to those. And that was in 99. And then from there, it was just, let's go,
So what did you want to do before that? And if there was a question in the chat, I'm gonna get to. And I'm curious, like, wait, you didn't always want to be a poet? Wasn't this like out of the womb? It seems so natural.
I
But
didn't start writing until 26. So, what did I want to be before this? All
yeah.
right, so growing up, I wanted to be a football player until the genetics caught up with me. And I was like, yeah, okay, so
Okay.
that's not gonna work. And then of course hip hop came along, so I wanted to be a rapper, I wanted to be an MC.
Right.
A big one that made it.
Yes.
And then, when I was young, I used to walk around my house with my room with a little briefcase I got from a yard sale. I wanted to be a lawyer. Yeah, I think those three. And then I got into poetry. And then at one point, I wanted to be a professor. Before the poetry, but the poetry actually made it happen. And I forgot about that, wanted to be a professor, until I was in grad school and the opportunity presented. So yeah.
Seems like
So
you're
honestly,
on
the
that.
honest questions, I don't know what I wanted to be. That's why I'm thankful for poetry, because it found me and told me this is who you're going to be, So I was trying a whole lot of things.
I'm saying, I feel like the path was laid, maybe we just,
Yeah.
sometimes we don't see it. Right. And then
Yeah.
all these experiences are what inform that.
Mhm,
Right.
absolutely.
This is an interesting question, like, and it's very big, so feel free to kind of pick it apart or
Yeah.
make it as small as you can figure it out. What truths are you telling with your poetry? Because there's a lot, but is there like something that you make sure you always hit on or talk about or draw from, thematically or experientially, that like, this is my work, my truth, this world needs to hear about it?
Oh man, the human experience, man, but more in a more detailed sense, right? The African ancestral human experience, because that's who I am, right? And not only that, there's more to me than that, but this is who society constantly tries to keep telling me, reminding me of who you think I am, right? So who you
Yep.
think I am and who I am are totally two different things. So instead of you thinking of who I am, right, I'm gonna show you who I am, right? So there's no misperception anymore. And if there is a misperception, it's on your part, because I've been clear about who I am. Because again, back to the narrative, that's not who I am, right? And that's not who we are. From an ethnic ancestral background, right? Not even racial. Racial is just a social construct word that makes no sense whatsoever. But it's working, right? So if it works, whatever's going to keep the kids inside the playground, do it, right? And so, for example, right, I'm gonna give you this example. This may answer the question, right? So when I was, I traveled to Botswana, Africa, right? And so one evening, meeting new folks, right, and we chatting it up, having a good time and so forth. And then it comes, right? You African Americans, you're not African. Okay, all right. So let's just really break that down for a second, right? Okay, so ethnically, right, ancestrally, genetically, I'm from Africa, right? Look at me, right? All right, look at us, right? Look at us. Culturally, I'm American. Culturally, I'm not African. Culturally, I'm not Setswana and so forth. No, culturally, I'm American. So let's just debunk that. So when you really get to the root of things, it just really sounds stupid. And so, my truth in my poetry is, look how stupid you sound. I had a colleague say to me, trying to cock block me from creative writing, right? And I sat down with the dean and so forth. And so this colleague was more fiction based and this and that, right? So in the end, right, the colleague says, well, poetry's not creative writing. How stupid you sound. And I'm using the word stupid specifically, right? Because it's stupidity. Another one tried to cock block me from teaching English 102. Talked about PhD, and so forth, right? You don't need a PhD, a teacher community college, right? So she runs the class, right? She's the leader of the class, curriculum leader of the course. So again, in the meeting with the chair, and she goes, well, PhD. And I say to her, you don't have a PhD. So how stupid do you sound? So my poems, right, are anchored in truth, anchored in ancestry, right? Anchored in our narrative that needs to continue and so forth, right? And I'll say probably embarrassment, because I'll embarrass you if need be, if that's what it takes for you to actually stop and think about what you're saying, because you sound really moronic. I'll stop there.
Okay, fair enough. Well, we got right to the heart of it.
Yeah, right. We don't have much time, so
we could be here all day. And I have like one more big question.
No
for the two of us
worries.
to go over, but I want to just check in online here in the chat, because I did invite folks to talk and ask questions. And we don't have an audience in person per se. We have a few loved ones on the side who are in person watching, but we haven't opened up these events yet to public audience. We're working on this virtual space to be able to make sure we can connect with people worldwide and in their living rooms and in your space, meeting you where you are. So
I just wanted to say one more thing about that last question, right? Because I have tats here. So this is from Alex Haley's Roots, right? And it's Mandinka, and it says Karabe. And the youth ask the elders, Karabe, do you have peace? And then the response is Kara Darong, peace only, right? And so it's part of my ancestral totem, that whatever I'm doing, whatever I'm going through, and so on and so forth, this is my goal, and this should be our goal, period. So when it comes back to a matter of trying to disrupt that or disguise it, I have to actually dig deep to let it out.
Okay. And we're thankful for that. We're definitely thankful for that. Kind of a logistical question here, Professor Knowles. How do you feel about the presentation of your work in a written form versus orally or lyrically?
Oh
Do you have
man,
a preference of how it's presented? Or not, it doesn't say preference.
yeah, no, screw that. So back to education. After I got out in 99, 2000, I was writing my poetry. I started coming to Harvard to perform at signatures and so forth. And that's when I met the entire collective crew that helped me to own my craft, or just give me the space to be free with it and so forth, including me and my beautiful wife. And that's when I decided I wanted to go back to school to hone the craft, right? So that's when I went to grad school, Southern, for English. And shout out to Ken Flory, my mentor, one of my mentors and deans. Deans. He was the one that actually gave me a chance in grad school, because my grades weren't the best. I didn't study English in undergrad. So universe, I sat there for an hour in his office. At first, he's like, you don't really qualify. And then at the end, he's like, you know what? Here's what we're gonna do. And that's gave me the opportunity. I had to take some English courses and then get into the grad school program. But that's when I started to become the reader and read the literature and study Morrison and study Baldwin, right? And so on and so forth, right? And then Baldwin, I just read Baldwin said, a sentence should be as clean as a bone. A sentence should be clean like a bone. You know what I mean? And so that was my goal going to grad school, right? To make my sentences clean like a bone, right? So whatever I convey, because now I know I'm not in front of you. So now I have to evoke the same emotional gemstone that I would do in front of you, but now on the page, right? And so it was the amalgamation. That's when I became like a double threat, because I can really slice it in a theatrical performance, right? Spoken word, and I can slice it on the page as well. And so it doesn't matter. I don't even have a preference anymore. If I'm going to a spoken word venue and so forth, I'll hit the spoken word pieces, but I'm going to a literary reading, I'll break out the literature, the book, and so forth. So it's a double Dutch.
Well, we could go on all night, friends, but we're gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna ask one question. I want you to kind of like give me like the clean answer.
Which now you're not going to get, but go
I
ahead.
want to try it out because I also want to make sure that people at home get a chance to like see all the, do all of our acknowledgements at the end and all of our ways to keep in contact and all that. But I think we touched on it already, and we know that this is happening. There is an erasure of Blackness and otherness in schools' curriculums that's happening. What elements, what should we hold on tight to as teachers? And to those students out there that are listening, open your ears up so you can know like what are the things about Blackness and about the things that are rooted in your poetry that can come out and they can see in their own lives. What needs to stay in our schools? What needs to be there, even more prevalent?
You need to hold on to what you truly believe, right? What you feel here. Because, we're broaching upon critical race theory and so forth. And,
I'm talking about
and so if something or someone is constantly trying to tell you what you feel here doesn't match here, then you have to just examine that, and make the decision on your own. I mean, what can I my wife's a teacher. She's on the front line every single day, right? She may be better to come here and answer that question because, you just have to stay true to what's in here and so forth, right? As an educator and as a youth, man, I was gonna say just do it, like thank you, but just believe, man. And I'll say this here's my clean state on critical race theory, right? So if they're moving to erase speaking about the history, American history, right? Where it treated enslaved Africans barbarically, right? And you want to no longer talk about that and so forth, then we got to be very careful, because that means we have to pull out all the conversations about all the races and all the experiences, right? And all the trauma, not just this piece of trauma. No, all the trauma. In case in point would be when Whoopi Goldberg got in trouble about speaking about the Jewish Holocaust and so on and so forth. And she said it wasn't about race. And the response was overwhelmingly that it was about race, to the point where she had to come on to TV and apologize and so forth. So if we're going to remove the racial narrative of the African Holocaust, and also then the narrative of the Jewish Holocaust also must be fairly erased. Now, let me be very clear. I'm not talking about erasing anything. My point is nothing should be touched. It all should be examined. My friend in Botswana, she's half German, and she talks about how in Germany, right, from K through 12, they study the Holocaust because they're embarrassed and they never want it to happen again. They say they got the Holocaust coming out of their ears, right? And what are we doing? The complete, total opposite. And so just think and feel for yourself. That's all.
Ashe. Got that power.
Peace.
Thanks everybody. Please take a look at the slides that Robin's providing here. We have lots of funders to thank. It's been a little extended evening, but well worth it. And I hope that we all walk away with something powerful in our hearts, a little inspiration, maybe go read something. Maybe your
Read
book,
something, yeah.
right? Maybe
Yeah,
Black
you
Grove
can
City.
pick up Black Rose City,
Um,
barnesandnoble.com.
Thanks to Robin and the whole JDPP team for supporting all this. Thanks to our audience. We can't wait for the next one, and who knows where our next journey will be. We'll take it somewhere interesting and somewhere beautiful as usual. Thanks again, and have a great night.